Title: She came to watch her son graduate until his drill instructor broke formation and called her ma'am URL https://www.youtube.com nosht VT7 SRBMRE ma'am, back behind the line. You think this is a museum? I won't tell you twice. The voice came across the parade deck before the man did. Staff Sergeant Eli Rohr, 32, 14 years in the Corps, senior drill instructor of 3rd Platoon. Campaign cover squared on his head at the angle the manual called for, and the Corps remembered. He crossed the open concrete at a pace. Said he had been waiting for the chance. It was 9:30 on a Sunday morning in May, the 2nd Sunday of the month, the first day of Family Week at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot on Paris Island. The South Carolina humidity was already up. The painted yellow line, as on the observation walkway, had been walked across so many times in 7 months that in places it was almost gone. The woman in the navy blazer was standing forward of it, not by much, half a step. She wore gray slacks, low flats, nothing on her ears. Her hair was pulled back in a clip that cost $6 at an airport kiosk in Atlanta. Her visitor badge said Mitchell, and she had written it in block capitals herself at the gate guard's table at 0740. The guard had not looked twice. Other families on the walkway had stepped back at the first syllable of Rohr's voice. She had not. Her weight shifted onto her back foot in the half-sec before he yelled. A small adjustment that nobody on the walkway saw, and that if they had seen it, they would not have known to name. Her hands stayed open and loose at her sides. She stepped back exactly the distance required. No more. Her body did not turn away from him. Her eyes stayed level. "Yes, Staff Sergeant," she said. Rohr held her there. 10 seconds, 12. Speedus, Ponji. He was waiting for an apology or for an excuse, or for the soft civilian sound that a mother makes when a man in a uniform raises his voice in front of her. None of it came. After a count of 15, he walked on. On the 2nd floor balcony of the depot headquarters building, 3 stories above the parade deck, Battalion Sergeant Major Owen Pritchard set his coffee down very carefully on the wide concrete rail. He did not pick it up again. 51 years old, 30 years in, 2 prior tours of attachment with 1st SF Group out of Fort Lewis, a senior enlisted Marine who had stopped being surprised by people sometime around the Second Gulf War. He took his sunglasses off. He put them back on. The woman at the yellow line had not flinched. Her hands had not closed. The distance she had stepped back was the distance a person stepped back when they wanted to keep their body oriented to a threat and out of strike range, and not 1 inch further. The cadence of the step was the cadence of a person who had done it before. Somewhere it had mattered. The yellow line had faded in places. The staff sergeant did not care. The staff sergeant did not care. He had been waiting 11 minutes for someone to step across it. Out on the deck, 3rd Platoon was running through the final week of pre-graduation drill. 80 yards away in the 2nd rank stood recruit Henry Mitchell, 19 years old, his shoulders held by his cover and his fatigue. He had lost 17 pounds in 19 weeks. He did not see his mother. She did not wave. Karen Doyle, 41, a school nurse from Akron, Ohio, was 2 paces to Jessica's left at the rail. She had a son in 3rd Platoon, a tall, quiet boy named Eric. She had been crying the entire morning in small bursts. She did not want anyone to see. She had heard Rohr's voice and felt her own face go hot. She had looked at the woman in the navy blazer to see if the woman was crying too. The woman in the navy blazer was not crying. The woman in the concrete in sheets, the woman in the navy blazer was looking at Staff Sergeant Rohr's retreating back the way a person looked at the weather. He bereanupred in sheets around the perimeter of the parade deck. The families found their old positions, and the morning went on. A bird called, once from the live oak at the depot chapel. Somewhere off the southeast corner, a buffer hummed. Henry's comp the concrete in sheets. Henry's company executed a flank movement, the kind of movement that 6 months ago the boy in the second rank could not have named. The mother on the walkway watched him move, and her face did not change. The orientation program for Family Sunday called for the parents to walk a slow clockwise loop around the parade deck observation rail. 2 hours, 3 stations, a guided tour of the recruit barracks complex at 11. Lunch in the family hall at noon. An afternoon block of small group conversation with the senior drill instructors of each platoon. Most parents kept moving. Most parents wanted to fill the time with motion. Jessica had not moved from the yellow line. A young Marine in a green sweater walked past her with a clipboard. 21 years old, a name tape that read Carter. He paused. The heat came off the concrete in sheets. He had been told by the family liaison officer to keep an eye on the parents, who looked overwhelmed. He looked at the woman in the navy blazer. He looked at her hands at her sides. He looked at the angle of her shoulders. He decided somewhere in the back of his head that the woman in the navy blazer wasn't overwhelmed, and didn't need anyone to keep an eye on her. He kept moving. A drill cadence rose. A different platoon, 2nd Company, boots on concrete, 80 pairs. Jessica raised her chin half an inch. The motion was not deliberate. Yes, the motion was the motion of a person whose body had been told by years of training, and by something earlier than training, that the chin came up when the voice in the room went down. On the 2nd floor balcony, 3 stories above her, Sergeant Major Pritchard watched her chin come up. He watched the way she set her feet, came off the concrete in sheets. He watched her shoulders square in a way that had nothing to do with what she was looking at. He set his coffee on the concrete rail. The cup had gone cold 10 minutes ago. He did not pick it up again. It was Monday morning at 11:15. When Rohr pivoted toward the marksmanship station with the air of a man who enjoyed a crowd. The walking tour had 8 families in it. They moved in a loose clump behind him, the way a school group moved behind a museum docent. Jessica was at the back of the clump. Karen Doyle was at her elbow. Came off the concrete in sheets. Karen had decided on Sunday night in her hotel room that the woman in the navy blazer was the only person on this depot she was going to stand next to. Rohr set the tour at 20 feet behind the firing line. On the line was Recruit Lloyd, 2nd Platoon, a thick-shouldered boy from Tampa with a marksmanship score of 210. He was on the line because the Public Affairs Office had asked for a recruit who could put on a show. The rifle was an M16 Alpha 4. The magazine was loaded with 20. Lloyd settled. Lloyd fired. The first shot rang clean. The second. The third. The fourth was a malfunction. The bolt did not seat. Lloyd, on instinct, reached up with his right index finger toward the chamber. "Recruit's going to sort it out," Rohr said, voice carrying for the families. "Watch how he handles it." The mother to Karen's right held her breath. Lloyd's finger crept closer to the open ejection port. Jessica spoke under her breath, just to Karen, quiet and even, and exactly the right volume for one person to hear, and no other person to hear. And the words she used were not the words a mother said. Failure to extract, probably the extractor claw. He needs to lock the bolt to the rear, drop the magazine, inspect the chamber, fingers stay out of the action. Karen turned her head. How do you know that?" I read up. Jessica said to know what he goes through. 12 feet behind them, and one shoulder back, Sergeant Davenport, 28, the range NCO on duty, had been walking past with a clipboard. He had heard the words. He had heard the sequence. He had heard the cadence. He kept walking. He filed it under the part of his mind that filed the things a Marine Corps non-commissioned officer filed and did not say on the line. Lloyd locked the bolt to the rear, dropped the magazine, inspected the chamber. The brass was tilted. He cleared it. He set the magazine back. He chambered a fresh round. He fired. The shot was clean. Roar turned. He looked at Jessica. He smiled. The smile was wide. The smile was not warm. "Tss," he said, loud enough for the families, and loud enough for Lloyd on the line, and loud enough for Davenport with the clipboard. "Civilians don't coach my recruits. Some of you read too much on the internet." The families laughed, the soft, uncertain laugh of people who had been told a joke and did not want to be the only one not laughing. Jessica did not laugh. She said, "Yes, Staff Sergeant." She looked at the rifle, not at him. Roar held the look a moment longer. Then he turned and led the tour to the next station, the obstacle course, where he had a longer set of remarks prepared. He did not look at the woman in the navy blazer again that morning. He had begun, somewhere between the third shot and the fourth, to memorize her face. Sergeant Davenport finished his loop, returned to the range office, and sat down at his desk. He did not write anything down. He thought about the cadence of the 4 sentences he had heard. He thought about the order of the words. He thought about the absence of any civilian softening. Any, I think. Any, maybe any, would you? He had been on this range for 4 years. He had heard the words said in exactly that order, in exactly that cadence, by exactly one type of instructor. He looked at his coffee. He looked at the duty log. He decided for now to do nothing. The decision lasted 3 days. Karen Doyle was still at Jessica's elbow when the tour moved on. She had not let go of the rail. She had not breathed for the better part of a minute. When she finally spoke, it was very quiet, the way a person spoke who was used to being polite, even when she was not sure what was happening. "Are you?" Karen said. "Are you in the service? Were you? I'm sorry. It's not my business." "It's all right," Jessica said. "I'm a mother, same as you." Karen looked at her sideways for one more second. Then Karen nodded the way a person nodded when she had decided to accept a thing that did not quite add up. They walked together to the obstacle course. They did not speak again until lunch. Roar's smile when he walked away from the marksmanship line was the kind of smile a man wore when he had decided to remember a face. Tuesday at 12:45, the family recruit assembly hall was full. 3 companies of recruits, at folding tables, families across from them, trays of cafeteria, chicken, and mashed potatoes between them, 30 minutes of authorized contact. Then the recruits would form up and march out. The room smelled of green beans and floor wax. The fluorescent lights buzzed. Jessica sat across from Henry. Henry had lost 17 pounds in 19 weeks. He ate too fast. They talked about nothing important. His cousin Maya's wedding in June. The dog Murphy, who had learned to open the back door on his own. The weather in Northern Virginia in May. Henry's eyes were 19 years old. Henry's were 19 years old and 10 years older than they had been in November. Roar walked the perimeter of the hall. He stopped behind Henry's chair without warning. He raised his voice. "Recruit Mitchell. On your feet when your mother enters the hall. Your platoon mates have manners. You don't. You may be the worst recruit in 3rd Platoon. I've made a note." Henry stood. He stood too fast. His knee caught the table. His fork hit the tray. The tray slid. The tray hit the floor. Plastic on linoleum. A sound the whole hall heard. The hall went quiet. 40 families watched. Henry's eyes shone. They did not spill. He had learned in 19 weeks where his tears were and were not allowed to be. Jessica picked up the fork, set it on the table, reached across, put her hand on the back of Henry's wrist, sat him back down, sat down herself, picked up her napkin, placed it in her lap, picked up her own fork. "Eat," she said. Henry ate. Roar held the moment for one more second. Then he moved on along the perimeter. The fluorescent lights buzzed. 40 families pretended to look at their trays. In the cleanup line at the far end of the hall, recruit Talia Park, 20 years old, 5'3" in, 105 pound, the smallest woman in 3rd platoon, was carrying her tray toward the rinse station. Roar walked past on her other side. The recruit in front of Park did not see what happened. The recruits behind her did not see what happened. Park did not see his foot move. Her heel caught on something that should not have been there. Her tray tilted. She caught it barely. The brown gravy slid an inch up the rim and stopped. Park's face did not change. Park wasn't allowed to cry here. Park had been waiting 19 weeks, someone to ask her if anything had happened that should not have happened. And no one had asked. And so Park had learned to be a person who did not need to be asked. Roar did not stop, did not look back, did not check whether the recruit had fallen. He walked on toward the door. The way a man walked, who had stopped paying attention to the small movements of his own feet. Jessica's eyes lifted from the table, just enough to find Park across the room. The look between them lasted 1 beat. The look said, "You're seen." Park read it. Park's chin came up 1/4 of an inch. Jessica looked back at Henry. The leather notebook in her jacket pocket stayed in her pocket. She did not take it out at the table. She closed her eyes for 1 second and wrote the entry in her head. The date, the time, the names, the location, the action, the witness count. Some men wore the campaign cover for what it cost them. Other men wore it for what it let them get away with. You non-crotic munsep. You could usually tell the difference inside the first hour. The families in that hall could not get up and leave. Their 19-year-olds were 3 weeks from carrying the same flag he wore on his sleeve. If you had ever sat across a table from a man in a uniform and noticed in your stomach exactly what kind of man he was, and held your tongue because the cost of speaking was not yours to pay, you might want to subscribe and stay. There was a moment 3 days from this lunch that no one in the hall, including the man in the campaign cover, was going to see coming. Henry finished his plate, drank his milk, said quiet, the only thing he had said since he had stood up. "Mom, I'm okay." Jessica nodded. She did not say anything. She did not trust her voice to come out at the volume she wanted it to come out at. She closed the notebook in her head, looked up. Her expression had not changed. Wednesday afternoon was Family Recreation Day. Recruits were given 6 hours of semi-civilian time with their families on the depot's east lawn. Concrete and sheets, the closest thing to civilian space Paris Island, offered with picnic tables and folding chairs, and a volleyball net the Morale and Welfare Office set up every Wednesday from April through October. At 1:30 in the afternoon, with families already starting to set out water bottles and sandwiches, Staff Sergeant Roar walked across the lawn to where Recruit Henry Mitchell was sitting, next to his mother. "Recruit Mitchell," he said. "Disciplinary remediation, 6 hours. Police the area." Henry stood. "I, Staff Sergeant, move." Henry moved. He did not look at his mother. He walked across the lawn toward the equipment shed, where the rakes and the trash bags were kept. He did not look back. Around him, 20 other recruits stayed, seated with their families. Their families pretended not to see what had happened. Jessica watched him walk away. She gave it 10 seconds. Then she stood, picked up her jacket, folded it once over her arm, and came off the concrete in sheets and walked across the parade deck toward the depot headquarters building. The battalion duty office was on the second floor. The sergeant of the guard was a 23-year-old corporal named A.S. He was polite. He stood when Jessica came in. He asked her what he could help her with. "I'd like to see the incident report on the disciplinary remediation just assigned to recruit Henry Mitchell." "3rd Platoon," she said. Reyes pulled the duty log on his terminal. He scrolled. He scrolled again. He looked up. "Ma'am, there's no incident report on that. There's no witness statement. There's no chain of custody. It's not in the system. How is it in the system that he's on remediation?" "It's not, ma'am. It's just on the platoon's verbal." "Whose verbal?" Staff Sergeant Rohr. Jessica nodded. She did not say anything for a moment. In the chair against the far wall, a woman in a green cardigan and jeans had been sitting silently the whole time. Karen Doyle. She had been there for an hour. Her son Eric had been pulled from rec day for the same reason last Wednesday and the Wednesday before that. "He did the same to my son last week," Karen said. Her voice was small, but her words were steady. 6 hours of police call. "No paperwork," I asked. "They said it was, quote, in process." "It is never going to be in process." Karen's hands were on her knees. Her hands shook. Jessica looked at her. Karen's hands stopped shaking. The hallway outside the duty office filled with the sound of boots. Rohr filled the doorway. He was breathing through his nose. His voice was loud enough to carry down the hallway and around the corner and into the secretary's bay. "Ladies, I don't know what we're doing here, but this is not the place for family complaints. Step out now." Karen tried to step out first. Rohr's shoulder caught hers. It was not subtle. It was deliberate. Karen pitched sideways. Her hip clipped the door frame. Jessica's hand was on Karen's elbow before Karen could fall. The catch was a half-second. The catch did not look like a catch. Heat came off the concrete in sheets. It looked like a person who had decided calmly that another person was not going to hit the floor on her watch. Jessica's body absorbed the weight of a 130-pound school nurse from Akron and did not lurch and did not shift and did not lean. Karen did not lose her footing. Karen looked at Jessica. Jessica. She was surprised at how solid the woman's hand was, like a brace bar, like a thing built to hold a person upright. A grip a person learned somewhere a long way from a battalion duty office. "I've got you," Jessica said quiet. "Move with me out the side door." They went 40 feet down the hall in the back doorway of the duty office. Sergeant Major Owen Pritchard. Pritchard had been standing for 40 seconds with a coffee in his right hand. He had seen the shoulder check. He had seen the catch. He had seen the half-second of Jessica's body absorbing another woman's weight and not moving. He looked at the back of Jessica's blazer as she walked Karen out the side door. He looked at Rohr. He looked at the duty corporal's terminal screen. He said, low, the words for Reyes only. "Corporal, pull every incident report Staff Sergeant Rohr has filed in the last 60 days. Quietly have them on my desk by 1600. I, Sergeant Major Pritchard, walked past Rohr without speaking. His shoulder did not check Rohr's. His shoulder did not need to. Outside in the parking lot, in the shade of a row of live oaks, Karen's sat on the bumper of a Honda CR-V with Ohio plates. Jessica stood next to her. Jessica took the leather notebook from her inside pocket, took a pen, opened the notebook, wrote one line. Date, time, names, action, witness. She closed the notebook and slid it back into her pocket. Karen watched her do it. Karen did not ask what she was writing. Sumum she say peace. Karen had decided somewhere between the duty office and the parking lot that there were some questions a person did not need to ask. 3 offices away in the depot headquarters, building on the battalion sergeant major's wide oak desk, an interdep departmental envelope lay sealed and unopened. By morning, Corporal Reyes would have placed 3 more on top of it. Thursday morning at 7:41, Pritchard sat at his desk, with the door closed and his cell phone on speaker low. The first envelope was open, 60 days of incident reports, filed by Staff Sergeant Rohr. The pattern a senior enlisted Marine could read, off the page in under 90 seconds. Pritchard had read it in 40. He dialed a number he had not dialed in 3 years. Booker, it's Pritchard. Owen, it's been a minute. I need a name woman, early 40s. Calls herself Mitchell. Carries herself like Sangan. Son in 3rd platoon graduating tomorrow. Reads as 05 minimum. Hands like a sweeper. You know anyone? A pause. Send me a photo. Pritchard sent the photograph he had taken Sunday from the 2nd floor balcony. The woman at the yellow line. The blazer. The clip in her hair. Call you in an hour, Booker said. The line went. At 9:05, on the parade deck observation walkway, Jessica did her morning loop. She did not know she was doing it. War gun. Her body walked the perimeter rail, the way a body walked a rail it had walked 100 times. She stepped just inside the painted yellow line. Not on it, just inside it. The angle a sweeper used, when he wanted his eyes on the deck and his shoulder out of the family flow. She glanced once at the catwalks on the depot HQ roof. She counted the concretes and sheets. She counted the exits without counting them. The way a person counted a thing the body had decided to count for him. She noted which exits were propped open with fire extinguishers and which were not. 3 minutes she was back where she had started before any other family member had finished one slow loop of the rail. Lance Corporal Maya Ortega, 22, was the family escort assigned to 3rd platoon families that morning. She watched Jessica do the loop. Ortega did not understand what she had just watched. Her body understood. Her body, without consulting her, stepped off the observation walkway, switched her route, the concrete, and sheets, and Doug gave the woman in the navy blazer wide space for the rest of the morning. Ortega did not look at Jessica directly again. Ortega did not know why she was not looking. Her body knew. At 9:42, the phone in Pritchard's office rang. Booker, go. Kestrel. Pritchard waited. How high? Booker said, higher than I can ask on this line. Sit on it. She'll want it that way. If she's at your depot, she has a reason. Don't ask her what it is. Copy. And Owen, whoever's been picking on her this week, stop him now, before she has to. The line clicked. Pritchard set the phone down. Looked once at the parade deck through his office window. The deck was empty, was empty in the morning sun. The painted yellow line ran the length of it. He could see the place where she had stood on Sunday, the place she had stepped back to, the place her chin had come up. He stood, walked to the blinds, closed them slat by slat until the parade deck was gone. By 9:44 on Thursday morning, 2 men on that depot knew. One of them had served 30 years for the right to know things he was not allowed to say. The other was on a back porch in North Carolina hanging up a phone. A third man, the one in the campaign cover on the parade deck, did not know yet. 28 hours from now, he would. If you wanted to be in the family stands when he found out, you might want to subscribe and stay. The reveal in this story was not in the title. The reveal in this story was in the moment after. In the 2nd Sergeant's bay outside Pritchard's office, Corporal Reyes was on his 2nd cup of coffee. The stack of incidents, reports that Pritchard had asked for, had grown overnight, 27 pages. Reyes had pulled them in chronological order and clipped them. He'd also pulled on his own initiative the parent complaint log for the past 60 days filtered to 3rd platoon. 6 complaints, all 6 involving Staff Sergeant Rohr. 4 of the 6 had been suppressed at the company 1st sergeant's level. None had reached Pritchard's desk. Reyes set the stack on Pritchard's desk at 10:09 and stepped back. He did not say anything. Pritchard nodded once. Reyes left. Pritchard closed the blinds, slat by slat, until the parade deck was gone. The parade deck did not need him to look at it. The man on the parade deck did not need to be looked at twice. Thursday night, the room in Beaufort, South Carolina was small and beige and clean in the way that business-class hotel rooms were clean. 2 double beds, a desk, a folder of takeout menus, a coffee maker 6 miles inland from the depot. The drive had taken 12 minutes. The interstate had been empty. Jessica took off the blazer, hung it carefully in the closet, took off the flats, sat on the edge of the bed nearest the window, opened her wallet, unfolded a small photograph she had not looked at in 19 months. 3 Marines on a rooftop. The rooftop was concrete. The light was the gray pre-dawn light of a Sangin. Morning, the light that filled the sky between 400 and 4:30 in April. The faces of the 3 Marines were blurred at clearance. Concrete and sheet. The way the public release version of every operational photograph in her file was blurred at clearance. Only the silhouettes were visible. The one on the left was small and held a long rifle. The one in the middle was tall and held nothing. And one on the middle's shoulder was a smear of dark that the clearance redaction had not fully removed, and that Jessica knew was blood. The one on the right was wide-shouldered and held what looked like a radio. She thought about Henry, about the concrete she had missed, the 13th birthday because she had been in a building in Hart that she still could not describe in writing, about the year of his life she had not been there for, and the years she had been, about what it cost to be someone's mother, and also to be someone's voice on a radio at 3. 0 to the concrete in sheets, 0 in the morning, and how the two were not separable and never would be, about whether her son would understand when he was older, the heat off the concrete. That the woman who had not come to his 13th birthday, and the woman who was sitting in the 3rd row of the family stands tomorrow, were the same woman about whether he needed to understand, about whether it was her job to make him understand. She did not know. She had not known for a long time. The flashback opened the way the flashback always opened. The Combined Air Operations Center trailer at Kandahar Airfield 0317 local. April 14th, 2018. Major Jessica Mitchell Vega in a folding chair, headset on, 2 monitors, 1 paper map. The map had grease pencil. The grease pencil was hers. Her voice was steady. Her voice was always steady. Came off the concrete sheets. Her voice had been told by years of training, and by something earlier than training that the people on the other end of the radio needed her voice to be the steadiest thing in their world. The fire team was in a compound. The compound was 2 stories. The breach had been compromised at the 2nd window. The team leader, Sergeant Hollis, had taken a round to the chest. The chest was sucking. Hollis was fading. The other 3 Marines were in the kitchen. The Taliban were on the 2nd floor and in the courtyard. The roof was the only door. The voice on the other end of the radio was shaking. The voice belonged to a lance corporal named Roar. Kestrel 6. Kestrel 6. This is Bravo 1. Charlie Hollis is down. We are pinned. Request. Request guidance. Bravo 1 Charlie. This is Kestrel 6. Confirm Hollis status. Sucking chest, bilateral conscious fading. Copy. Bravo 1 Charlie. Hollis is your priority. Get him to the roof. The roof is your only door. 21 Romeo is coming on station in 4 minutes. 21 Romeo will give you suppression on the 2nd floor. You will move under that suppression. Copy Kestrel 6. Bravo 1. Charlie, listen to me. You have time. You have a clock. The clock is your friend. The clock is 23 minutes. We are going to take 23 minutes. You are going to bring Hollis up that stair. You are going to keep moving. Acknowledge. Acknowledged. Kestrel 6, 23 minutes. Mills, call signs, distances, danger close. The gunship 21 Romeo over the second-story window. The rotor wash kicking dust up the alley. She talked them through the interior stair. She talked them through the breach, out. She talked the helicopter onto the roof. 21 Romeo. Bring it left 20 miss. Danger close. Danger close. Copy. Kestrel 6. Copy. Left 20. Danger close. Bravo 1 Charlie. 6 minutes. 6 minutes. Keep moving. At the 23rd minute, Hollis stopped breathing on the roof. The bird was already coming in. The 3 remaining Marines got on the bird. One of them was Roar. The bird went. She had held the channel open one more transmission, the way she always held it open in case any voice came back. None did. Kestrel, 6 to all stations. Mission complete. Going dark. She had not known his name. She had not known his face. She had known his voice. The way a person who had heard a voice for 23 minutes in the worst minutes of that voice's life, knew that voice, the way her own father had once told her he could pick a particular man's foots out of a crowd because of one bad ankle in 1974. Roar's voice had a small catch on the consonant at the end of the word acknowledged. It was the catch of a young man who was the catch of a hard, not to very cry on an open channel. She had heard it 12 times in 23 minutes. She had came off the concrete in sheets. She had filed her after action that night in the trailer at Kandahar. She had written it in third-person past tense, the way the format required, and she had not used the word Hollis a single time in the report. A single time in the report because the use of the proper name in the AAR template was not authorized at that classification level. She had sent the report up the chain at 0451. She had taken her headset off. Came off the concrete in sheets. She had sat in the folding chair in the trailer for 40 minutes without moving. When the next shift had come in at 0600, she had stood up, walked across the airfield to her bunk, and slept for 16 hours. She had not heard the voice again until the parade deck on Sunday morning, 8 years and 26 days later, when the voice in the campaign cover had told her to step back behind a yellow line. She refolded the photograph, set it on the nightstand, reached over, and switched off the lamp. She lay on her back in the dark for a long time. She did not sleep until 217 in the morning. The photograph was face down. Friday morning at 9:15, the depot co was not yet on the field. Roar had decided on his own authority to add 45 minutes at attention to the platoon's pre-graduation rehearsal. The sun was up. The humidity was 82%. The asphalt of the parade deck was 11 degrees warmer than the air. 3rd Platoon stood in 3 ranks of 16. Recruit Henry Mitchell, 3rd rank, 2nd from the right, had lost 17 pounds in 19 weeks and slept 5 hours in the last 48. He locked his knees at minute 22. He swayed at minute 26. His cover sat half a degree wrong because his head had begun almost imperceptibly to tilt. Jessica was on the family observation balcony. She had spent her career watching young men who were about to fall over. She knew the precursors. She turned to the family liaison, a corporal named Hines. Corporal Hines, that recruit, 3rd rank, 2nd from the right. My son is 2 minutes from sun syncope. He needs to come off the line. Get water on the line. Hines radioed. The radio call went to Roar. Negative. Roar said he'll learn. Henry went down at 9:45. Sudden full sun syncope. His knees folded. He hit the deck on the side of his hip, and his head bounced once on the concrete. 2 recruits in his rank started toward him. Jessica was already moving. She vaulted the balcony rail, a 4-foot drop. She landed in a soft squat, came up in stride. 30 yards of parade deck, crossed 30 yards of parade deck at a pace that was not a panicked mother's pace. She reached Henry first on her knees beside him, fingers to the clavicle pulse, counted, lifted his legs, and laid them across the chest of the recruit nearest him. Head down, legs up, the textbook way. She asked the recruit at her elbow by name because she had read his name tape. Recruit Alvarez. Coldwater. Now wet a t-shirt, applied a back of his neck, both wrists, both ankles. In that order, move. Alvarez moved. Roar arrived at a run. His voice was loud, performative, the voice he used when he wanted other Marines to see him being a drill instructor. "Ma'am, off my parade deck now." He grabbed the back of her blazer with his right hand. He tried to lift her off her knees. Jessica did not stop what she was doing. Her left hand stayed at Henry's clavicle. Her right hand stayed on the wet t-shirt at his neck. She allowed Roar to pull her 2 steps back across the concrete. Her knees did not lock. Her balance did not break. Then her body simply stopped moving, not by tensing, not by bracing. It just stopped. Roar pulled. She did not move. He pulled harder. He nearly stumbled into her. His hand released the blazer. He stepped back. Pritchard, who had arrived on the deck 30 seconds earlier from the depot HQ side, saw all of it. Henry's color came back, pulse strengthened. Jessica's fingers stayed on his ankles. She turned her head, looked up at Roar. For the first time in 5 days, she smiled at him. The smile was small, private, almost amused. The smile was not friendly. The smile was the smile of a person who had the smile decided something at some earlier point in the week and was now watching the decision finish working. Roar took 1 step back. He did not know what the smile meant. He did not know that on a secure radio line 3 buildings away, Pritchard's earpiece had just clicked twice. The 2 clicks were the confirmation Pritchard had been waiting for 28 hours. Staff Sergeant Eli Roar had been looking at the woman in the Navy blazer for 6 days. He had not until that smile actually seen her. Friday at 1400, the parade deck was full. 300 families in the stands, 3 companies on the deck, the band at the south end, the depot co at the microphone on the reviewing stand, the flags at the flagpoles. The sun an hour past its high. 3rd platoon was in formation. Roar was at the head of the platoon facing the family stands at parade rest. Henry was in the 3rd rank, 2nd from the right, his cover clean, his uniform the concrete in sheets, his uniform pressed, his color good. He had spent 90 minutes in the platoon's air-on-conditioned ready room after the rehearsal. He was on his feet. Jessica was in the 3rd row of the family stands. Navy blazer, gray slacks, no insignia. Her hands rested on her thighs. The way her hands rested on her thighs was the way only operators' hands rested. Pritchard was at the depot co's left elbow on the reviewing stand. Colonel Jack Banks, 54 years old, MCRD Paris Island commanding officer, 28 years in the Corps, stood at the microphone in dress blues. The standard remarks, the history of the depot, the standards of the Corps, the pride of the families, the 3 minutes of language that every depot co, at every recruit graduation, had given on this parade deck since the depot had opened. Then, near the end, Banks shifted his weight a 1/4 inch, and it came off the concrete and sheets, and the families who had been watching for 40 minutes felt the shift the way an audience felt a conductor draw breath. "It is my privilege today," Banks said, "to introduce a distinguished guest in attendance for this graduation. Families of our newest Marines, please join me in welcoming Colonel Jessica Mitchell, United States Marine Corps, Marine Raider Regiment, call sign Kestrel 6. Jessica did not stand, did not nod. Her hands stayed on her thighs. The third row of family members turned to look at her slow one at a time. She did not look at any of them. Her eyes were on Roar at the head of the platoon. Roar at parade rest, facing the stands. The loudspeaker words landed. His face cycled. Confusion. First the name Kestrel 6 from somewhere. His stomach knew before his mind did. His stomach went cold. Then disbelief. No, that was a name from a radio. That was a name from 2018. That was a name that had belonged to a voice that could not be the same. Then, recognition. The voice on the parade deck this morning. That recruit is 2 minutes from sun syncope. The 4 sentences she had said quiet to the family liaison. The cadence of cold water. Wet a t-shirt. Back of the neck, both wrists, both ankles in that order. Move the cadence of 2-1 Romeo. Bring it left 20 miss. Danger close. Danger close. Copy. The same cadence. The exact same cadence. Then horror. His eyes found her face in the third row of the family stands. He broke formation. 3 steps, clear of his line. The platoon behind him did not move. The drill instructors behind the platoon did not move. The band held the next bar in their lungs. The families in the stands did not breathe. He removed his campaign cover with both hands. Slow, as if it weighed more than it should, he turned toward the third row of the family stands. He said it loud enough for the front rank of his platoon to hear. Ma'am. Then again, slower, almost silent. Ma'am, I didn't know. Jessica rose from the third row. The bench scraped under her flats. The other parents moved their knees aside. She walked the 7 paces to the parade deck edge. The way she walked was not the way a mother walked. The way she walked was the way a Marine Raider Regiment commander walked on her own parade, hands clasped behind, spine, chin, eyes level. Henry, in the third rank, second from the right, saw his mother for the first time. His mouth opened. He did not move. He did not speak. He stood at attention because he had been trained in 19 weeks to stand at attention. At the parade deck edge, Jessica stopped. Roar faced her, 6 feet of concrete between them. Roar saluted. The salute was correct. The salute was not steady. Jessica returned the salute cleanly, easily. The salute was the salute of a person who had returned a salute on the deck of a ship in the South China Sea, and on a parade in Quantico, and on a rooftop in Songin in April 2018. She held the salute the full beat. She lowered her hand. She said, quiet at ease. Staff Sergeant Roar went to at ease. His shoulders were shaking. Not from fear, from something that had been sitting inside his chest, untouched for 7 years. And that had just been touched. 2 Marine military police in dress blues walked onto the parade deck from the depot HQ side. They walked in step with the band's final cadence. They did not raise their voices. They took Roar by the elbows. They walked him off the deck. The platoon did not move. The family stands did not breathe. 2 military police in dress blues walked onto the parade deck and step with the band's final cadence. They did not raise their voices. They did not need to. Friday evening at 16:47, Pritchard set a sealed manila envelope on Colonel Banks's desk. Banks opened it, read 4 pages, closed the envelope, looked up. Get me, Inspector General. Pull the first sergeant tonight. Aye, sir. By Saturday at 9 in the morning, Master Sergeant Petrui. The company first sergeants, who had been covering for Staff Sergeant Roar for 14 months, was in an interview room with 2 IG investigators and a stenographer. He cracked at mine at 11. He gave them the names. He gave them the dates. Came off the concrete in sheets. He gave them the hazing incident 2 weeks ago involving recruit Henry Mitchell and 2 other recruits in the 3rd Platoon Barracks, the incident he had suppressed at Roar's request and recorded as a counseling Note: by Monday afternoon at 14:30, recruit Talia Park, 5'3" and 105 pounds, the smallest woman in 3rd Platoon, was in an interview room with one IG investigator and a battalion JAG officer. Her voice was steady. She had been waiting 19 weeks. She had been waiting 19 weeks for someone to ask her if anything had happened that should not have happened. She gave them everything she had seen. Names, dates, the way Rohr had spoken to Henry, the way Rohr had spoken to her, the exact phrase the concrete backs had used in the 3rd Platoon barracks at 2100 on 5th of May. When he had told Park and the 2 other recruits, with Henry in the corner of the bay, that if any of them said a word about what had just happened, they would never graduate from this depot. The phrase had been, "You're nothing without me." Park gave them the phrase. Then she sat very still and looked at her hands. By Sunday afternoon, the depot grapevine had carried the story to all 3 companies and a half of the support battalion. By Monday morning, a wing of the depot, H Sheets, was rearranged to accommodate a small temporary office for an Inspector General team flown in from Headquarters Marine Corps. The IG team set up at 0800. They interviewed 9 recruits before lunch. Came off the concrete in Sheets. By Monday evening, Staff Sergeant Rohr had been formally relieved of his drill instructor duties, pending the convening of an Article 32 hearing. 3 other drill instructors in his company were reassigned to administrative duty. The company First Sergeant Petrucci was placed on the same administrative status. By Tuesday morning at 8:15, recruit Talia Park in her graduation camis was in Colonel Banks's office. Banks personally signed her reassignment paperwork, a leadership track position at the School of Infantry. Effective immediately. Park took the papers. Her eyes were wet. She did not cry. She saluted. Banks returned the salute. Pritchard met Jessica at the gate at 0900 Tuesday. Her rental car was loaded. Her son was on a 36-hour graduation pass at the Hampton Inn off Highway 170. Jessica had spent the previous evening with Henry for the first time in 19 weeks. They had eaten dinner. They had not talked about the parade. Henry had asked one question. She had answered it. Then they had not talked about it again. At the gate, Pritchard saluted. Jessica returned it. They did not shake hands. Pritchard said, "Ma'am," Jessica said, "Sergeant Major." She drove out the gate. Feetuts. Pritchard watched the rental until it had cleared the second guard shack. Then he turned around and walked back to the depot HQ. Silence at the right moment was louder than every voice in the room. The smallest woman in 3rd Platoon had been silent for 19 weeks. The colonel in the 3rd row had been silent for 6 days. Both of them had been counting. And Crete in Sheets, if this was the kind of story that found its way into the back of your head and stayed, drop a word in the comments below. Subscribe to Honor Tales. The next mission was already on her desk. Tuesday afternoon at 1622, the JSOK liaison office at Marine Corps Base Quantico was small and beige and secure. One desk, one terminal, a single window with the blinds half drawn. Jessica sat at the desk. Her blazer hung on the back of the chair. The decrypted transmission cable on the terminal screen was 3 lines long. It was flagged for her eyes only. It had come in from a black site in Yemen at 0411 local. It was marked by a call sign she had been told 2 years and 3 months ago was killed in action. The message read, "Bird 2 to Kestrel. Same nest still flying." She read it twice. She reached into her wallet, unfolded the photograph. 3 Marines on a rooftop and sung. The third silhouette, the wide-shouldered one, with the radio, was Master Gunnery Sergeant Theo Dawes. Call sign Shrike 9. The man she had been told had not made it out of a vehicle in Ram Mani in February 2024. The heat came off the concrete in sheets, the man she had stopped looking at in the photograph. She refolded the photograph, slid it into the inside pocket of her jacket. She opened the secure terminal, set her hands on the keyboard, began to type a response. The screen reflected in her glasses. We did not see what she types. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to Honor Tales 4.